Yes, this question is for the Colonel. Um, it's obvious as to who the master criminals that were directly responsible for what happened in September 11th last year. But still, the question remains: who was directly responsible for what happened to the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City?
I think it's a good question. It was the worst thing that had happened at the time in my life. And of course, Tim McVeigh got all of the attention. I wanted very much for it to be no conspiracy. I was in Waco when it happened because I was to be a speaker there on the anniversary after it had happened in '93, and immediately people were calling in that it was Islamic Jihad, and I said, no, it isn't, because there was absolutely nothing. These people do not hate us, friends. They cannot do anything to us until we do something to them. And we hadn't done anything to them at that time to have any kind of response that way. And so I wanted it to be just a nut. When I look at, and let me dig into some intelligence here real quick. Tim McVeigh wanted to be a Special Forces soldier, and I can understand his motivation. They wanted to make me an officer when I enlisted in Special Forces, and I wouldn't do it because I would rather be a Green Beret than I ever would an officer. And later, I became an officer, which I think helped because now my mistress was Special Forces, and I could love her better as a commander and make sure the troops got their piece of it, too. But when you take tests, I had Army psychiatrists assigned to me because I was early on in Special Forces, and they were studying men under stress, and usually it was them that got under stress. My detachment, they sent psychiatrists down the Pentagon to figure out, they give us Rorschach tests. Now, I don't know what really happened because I was just one guy, but we made an agreement that no matter what they showed us, we were going to see bats. And that is what I did. I stuck to my agreement. Everything that the guy showed me, I said, well, that's a bat hanging upside down. This is a bat, fornicating over here on the wall. So, no wonder that Tim McVeigh comes in, and they've got all these psychological tests now for what does it take to be a Special Forces candidate. And if you don't see bats, then obviously they're going to rule you out. So the point is that he flunked. Now, one of the things that is very interesting, and I put it in one of the manuals called Spycraft that I offered at the table, an actual part of the Special Forces CIA test. There are no what you call right answers. There's no what you call wrong answers. Every answer is weighted. They want people who are self-reliant, people who are not totally mavericks that may go off on their own. So you've got to be someone who likes to work alone in strange environments. You don't have to have other people around you to support you. And every question, the way you weigh it, then it's given a weight, and you can score. Most people score too low, and so they're just not self-reliant enough. They're ruled out. If you score too high, you come into a special category. These are people that want to be, but just cannot be, because their personalities are a little too warped on the wrong side. But these are the perfect people to make Lee Harvey McVeighs out of, because I don't have time to go into all this, but I wanted to get along here with it. There is a signature. Anytime that the government is going to do something officially, unofficially, they would hire a guy like me, for example, a good old boy. At one time I was, until Saul on the road to Damascus. And then I hire my own people. I know people, unfortunately, that would have exploded the building if they were ordered to do so by proper authorities in Washington, D.C. Now, I go out and I get people that I've trained, Muammar Gaddafi's crowd. I didn't do that, but I know people that did, and so you get them. Because an American's not going to do that. That's the way I'm looking at it. But you always need a diversion, like Oswald was a diversion. They want to be something, but yet they don't have it inside, so you use them as a diversion. So in my inter-special forces brain, I said, well, there is Lee Harvey McVeigh. And then on my outside, I kept saying, no, we can't have a conspiracy on this thing. So I tried every way possible. Now, I was a demolitionist before I became an officer. And we have a sympathetic demolition formula. When a truck bomb goes off, I just knew that something had, because I had one of the three contractors was one of my friends. He moved out of America. He blew up the IRS building in Atlanta. They paid him. I'd have done it for free. But he told me. So I'm giving you, I'm trying to justify my conclusion. He said, Bo, all three of us that inspected Oklahoma City concluded something fast, 24,000 feet per second, like plastic explosive, cut that steel. Because an ammonium nitrate bomb, even supercharged, is only 16,000 feet per second. It moves earth. It bends steel, but it doesn't cut it. So then I'm trying to make this thing in my mind so you don't have this conspiracy. So I said, okay, I know what happened. I know what happened. And I checked it out, and so was it. In the military, in any government entity, you cannot turn in a lot of bullets or a lot of bombs if you break the lot. If you use, for example, C4, let's say, comes in 100-pound lots. If you break that lot, you've got to destroy it. You've got to get rid of it. They won't take it back. So what do you do with it? CIA used to come to show us their latest tricks every year. And, of course, we broke all these lots. I was part of this problem. I commanded my commanders, do not ever throw that stuff away. Well, then what do they do with it? You can't turn it back in. I said, put it in the trunk of your car. Put it in your closet. We may need it one of these days, and we won't have time to requisition it. And so I'll know to go to the trunk of your... So what happens? The ATF was using all this C4 training in car bombs and all this kind of stuff. They can't turn this stuff in. Well, they're supposed to dispose of it. That's what EOD is, the Explosives Ordnance Disposal. But it's too much trouble. So what do? You rat hole it because you may need it again. Well, Special Forces knows better than to rat hole blasting caps with the explosives. Because military explosives, you can shoot with a machine gun, it won't go off. It takes a special blasting cap for obvious reasons. So I thought, okay, I know what happened. The bomb went off that McVeigh fixed up, and the ATF had rat-holed 1,000 pounds of C4, which I got confirmed from a master blaster that had done the training for them in New Mexico and Oklahoma. And I said, those idiots had the blasting caps, which wouldn't have gone off by a sympathetic detonation. But the blasting caps were in the same container, and it did go off. And now you brought the whole building down, and they are just like you. You'd be indirectly charged with murder and terrorism if you had rat-holed explosives there in Oklahoma City, and it would have brought the building down. So I said, I got it now. And that's what I wrote in my chapter on the new book I got. But then, you see the truth. There's always two sides of this pancake. I then hazard to go to people who are bureau rats. These people are like urban development people. I mean, stick your finger down your throat that we're on the 8th floor and all this. These people, every one of them, told me, Bo, the reason I was saved, these survivors, is because first the building started to shake. Then the windows came in, which means that it wasn't the explosive on the outside that was fired first. It was something on the inside that was fired that was fast enough to cut the steel, which means C4, and then the car bomb exploded, the truck bomb, which blew in the windows and the facade of the building. And that is the truth. So it means that it wasn't just a nut McVeigh that drives up there that was dealing with Elohim City. And you didn't realize this probably, but there was a guy executed on that day from Elohim City that had killed a pawn shop operator because he thought he was Jewish, and he wasn't. Well, they executed him in Oklahoma, Elohim City, which is just on the Arkansas border from Tulsa. They're a bunch of weirdos. A bunch of guys, Strassmeyer, who was a lieutenant, Panzerfaust from Germany came over that they thought was an undercover agent because they caught him going in through a coded lock there in Tulsa to the BATF. And the guys that are responsible for a lot of Aryan Nation type things. McVeigh was seen 3 days before the explosion in a strip bar in Tulsa telling witnesses, the girls, you're going to remember me forever. So he was dealing with these guys. But friends, it takes sophistication to set up a chain of explosives that cuts steel, and that is the truth. And then the car bomb went off, and so I had to change my whole chapter to put in the truth. So the fact is, when you come back to it, follow the money. And it was November, the second time that Clinton got elected, and in Little Rock, there was him and Chelsea and his bride, and he says, because he was lower than whale droppings in the polls. He was lower than any president's ever been in history, 25% approval rate. And they said, what did it for you, Mr. President? What turned it around? And Bill Clinton said, quote, what turned it around for us was the Oklahoma City bombing. So you got to follow the money, friends. So unfortunately, I do believe that Tim McVeigh Tim just thought he was doing, like Lee Harvey Oswald. See, he didn't think they're going to kill the president because, he was getting sweet on Cuba and in the space race instead of the arms race and all this kind of stuff. And so I think Oswald wanted to do his duty. And then they said, don't worry, we'll take care of you. Remember, he said, I didn't do nothing. I didn't shoot anybody. Well, they did kill Kennedy. And in case of Tim McVeigh, maybe he don't even know. Maybe they say, listen, you drive his truck down there, and don't worry, we'll put it out. But they'll find it, and then, whoa, terrorism, domestic terrorism. All of a sudden, kaboom, the thing goes up, and all those children are dead.